Good afternoon, everybody. This is Kevin Askew, Director of Sales at TechXtend. I want to welcome you to today's Sophos webinar, 3 Steps to Securing Your Private Data in the Cloud. Today's agenda will include a brief intro on TechXtend, followed by today's webinar, hosted by Tom Henault, Data Protection Specialist, North America for Sophos. We'll then have a questions and answers period and a summary. TechXtend, formerly Programmer's Paradise, is a value-added provider of infrastructure and developer software systems and services, with over 25 years experience serving technology professionals and enterprises of all sizes across North America. Sophos falls under our industry-leading security tools worldview, which includes protection of business assets, brand and reputation, facilitation of supply chain and demand chain productivity, and gaining strategic business advantage solutions. I will now turn things over to Tom to start today's webinar. Tom? Looks like we may be having some technical difficulties with Tom. Please bear with us for a minute.
Is the audio coming through now, Kevin?
Yep, you're good now, Tom.
There we go. Thank you. Well, thank you, Kevin, Danielle, and the whole team at TechXtend for having us in from Sophos today. We appreciate it. My name is Tom Henault. I'm one of the product specialists at Sophos. I focus on data protection and encryption. It's my turn this time to give the overview. We're going to spend some time talking about ways to protect data in the cloud in particular at a broad level, then some of the things that Sophos does. So you can start off, ask a simple question. Where's your data? This question is straightforward, but the answer's gotten a lot more complicated over time. Once upon a time, your data would have been in your servers or maybe even your file folders, then your desktops. But as data's gotten more mobile and technology's gotten more portable, the answer's changed. Laptops, USB, smartphones, and now not even devices you're carrying. You're pushing things out to the cloud, getting it out of your infrastructure and out of your control. The big changes are twofold. First of all, just the sheer amount of data has vastly increased. The amount of things you need to be able to touch, the amount of data that your business needs on a daily basis. But the flip side of that is the change in your users' behavior. Let's face it, users aren't terribly patient. Their tolerance for not being able to get to the data and get to the information they need to work has dropped to zero. They want to be able to work where they want to work, when they want to work. I'll be the first to admit that I never check my phone while my kid's playing soccer, but I might check when she subs out. Users think of that as productivity, but you've got to think of it from the perspective of balancing productivity versus security. You know, here's some of the why to that. The law. Now, it's not just the law, it's lots of laws. I'll talk a bit more about state laws in a moment, but there's also a lot of federal laws like FERPA, which is protecting student information, CIPA, which is child internet privacy, HIPAA high-tech, protecting healthcare records. Skip PCI for a second. You have other rules that come into play. IRS 1075, if you're handling digital federal tax information, it's got to be encrypted. FISMA, those are the rules if you're dealing with federal information or government agency information. You also GLBA and SOX, which are rules around public companies. PIPEDA, which is the rules if you're dealing with Canada. Jumping back one, very important one is PCI DSS, right in the middle there, the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, which is around protecting credit cards. It's a rule to talk about privacy, protecting financial transactions, but one of the interesting changes we've seen in the laws lately, use the state of Oregon example, they've actually used PCI as the basis for their law. In effect, taking a payment card industry rule and making it a regulation. The bottom line here is the laws have a similar requirement of protecting information, making sure it's properly handled, and if you make a mistake, you have to disclose. You have to tell the impacted people, which might be your customers, your patients, your employees, your business partners, that you made a mistake. Sometimes you have to tell the media, tell the feds. It's in a lot of ways is raising your hand for a fine or volunteering for a lawsuit. Now, obviously, this can have a negative impact on your business and your reputation. Now, on a state-by-state level, because this is primarily a North American webinar, The laws have gotten a lot tighter. 46 out of 50 states have a law in place now. I'm going to key on 2 to start off. California, the Senate Bill 1386, had a law but strengthened it in 2011. In doing so, it really increased the amount of notification requirements, particularly if your company does business in California or does business with a California resident, you're subject to the law. Similarly, the same thing applies in Massachusetts and the other coast, Mass 201 CMR 17. It requires you implement a comprehensive data security plan. It sounds sort of intimidating. Well, probably meant to be. It specifically calls to encrypt all personal information stored on laptops or portable devices. The laws across the states come with a basic idea. Protect state residents. The laws usually go across state lines, so if you make a mistake, I'm here in Massachusetts. Massachusetts doesn't typically go after Massachusetts businesses. They're full of our taxpayers and our voters. But if businesses across state lines make a mistake, they'd love to go after you for a lawsuit. But what's the good news, and how do I tie this back to the cloud? Well, the good news is most of these clauses and laws have what they call a safe harbor clause. Safe harbor meaning if the data was encrypted and protected before it was lost or stolen, and you can prove it, you don't have to disclose. You don't have to notify. You don't have to raise your hand and say, give me a lawsuit. That's one of the steps you can take to keep your data protected. So let's tie this back to the cloud a bit. Another question, are your users leveraging cloud? And I'm very specific there. Are they? Not are they supposed to? Does the business plan for it? Are they leveraging cloud? The simple answer is probably yes, because we're seeing that over half the companies we're seeing are either using or planning to evaluate cloud storage, but also more than half don't have any controls in place to mitigate the use. Give you a real specific data point. Dropbox said they had over 45 million users saving 1 billion files every 3 days. That was back in November 2011 when they had that in a press release. That's only going to increase. And as they make tools like SkyDrive and iCloud and things like that more ubiquitous and more tied to your bring your own device and your mobile phone platforms, it's getting easier and easier for users to use this stuff. They like it. It makes them portable, keeps them productive, and they're used to using it in their personal lives. But again, there's some gotchas there. Look what happened with Dropbox. They take data security seriously. It's part of their business. But they did make a mistake and compromise a lot of passwords. Now, what happens if that's downstream with you, and that was your information? There's a saying that you can make sure I get this right. You can delegate authority, but not responsibility. So even though I've delegated the authority to handle my data, if it's been compromised or breached, I'm still liable. I'm still responsible. If you think about a lot of these tools that I've mentioned, a lot of them are consumer tools. The company didn't set them up, but it's still your data that your employee may be put in a place that could be breached. Remember your first USB stick? It was cool. If you're on this webinar, you're probably like me. I actually thought it was cool. It was small. It was fast. Easier, faster than burning CDs. Think about this. What do you have on it? Maybe some MP3 files, some songs, maybe a resume, maybe back up your tax returns, some pictures. Here's the following question here. Where is it? Could you put your hands on it now? Or if you're working IT and IT security, if you misplaced it, did you actually tell somebody? Did you actually do anything about it? It's small. It's disposable. It's easily replaceable. You didn't think about it, probably. Well, imagine now if it was on the cloud, because that's the change. USBs are great. Fast, small, easy, portable. How about something I don't even have to bring? I can just push it to the cloud, so if I don't feel like bringing my laptop home or misplace my USB stick, I can still access that data wherever I want. Well, that's cool. Again, it's magnifying productivity and portability, the type of thing users want. But let's keep security in mind. Here's the trends we're seeing broken into 2 buckets. The first one we're seeing is the public cloud being adopted more and more, both by consumers and primary businesses, using it for file sharing and portability. Makes you get the stuff where you want to. Makes it for easy access. The great thing about this is its enormous accessibility. It's enormous portability. The gotcha here is it's typically driven by an end user. They made a choice about what to put there. They made a choice about what to sync. and they control who it's shared to and who can access the files. The other problem is because it's an automatic sync, something might get synced up that you didn't even realize. I'll use myself as a real-life bad example. When I first tried setting up a Dropbox account myself, I set up my sync folder incorrectly, and instead of syncing a particular folder like I'd intended to, I actually synced my entire My Documents. That was a scary brief moment, and that was at home. If I'd done that at work, that would have been a bad scene, and absolutely would have violated some of the security rules at my company. But someone like myself who worries about security and is paying attention made that mistake, and I quickly undid it. But there's still some potential exposure there for me at a personal level. We want to avoid those types of things. But keep in mind, it is what users are looking to use. It's what they're familiar with. There have been next steps, sort of next generation steps, if you will, industry from a cloud perspective, the hybrid cloud. This is allowing for file sharing and integration and syncing with your infrastructure inside your network. I think there's a real nice balance here because it lets you leverage the infrastructure, the servers, the data center stuff you set up on your side, and then extend that to add the disaster recovery, the disaster avoidance of having some sort of corporate clouds. Ignite happens to be the corporate example we're using here as one of the providers that work in a hybrid cloud scenario. So it's letting you balance both on your physical wire, on your Wi-Fi, your virtual network, to a truly virtual network where the server might be across the country, across the world, being mirrored or copied off. This is a pretty good step from a business perspective in terms of continuity. But who's really in control when you start looking towards these cloud scenarios? You don't know who has access to your data. Under the Patriot Act, for instance, your cloud storage provider has to provide access to your data if requested by the government authority, and they don't have to inform you. My personal opinion, Patriot Act might have been a little misnamed, but that is a business concern. If your data is out of your hands, who can access it, and how do you know? What technology do they use to secure it? I'll put it to you another way. If somebody broke into your data center and stole a hard drive, you'd probably notice alarms, alerts, physical security. Now, if you had data on a virtual server, a cloud provider, and somebody copied that virtual server, would you have any way to tell? A little bit scary thought there. So who's in control at the end of the day? That's what we're worried about. One simple step that I consider, acceptable use policy. A lot of companies have them these days, but does yours specifically talk about cloud storage? And if it does, this is sort of a blunt way to put it, is it a real policy or is it an ostrich policy, an ostrich with its head in the sand, or what I call a supposed to policy, like you're not supposed to do it? Are you actually putting controls in place? Are you actually protecting the data? Well, what can we do about it? That's the heart of this webinar. There's some things we can offer to users as alternatives. Well, first off, start with the technologies you've been using so far. Now, email, very ubiquitous, very easy. People know how to do it. But distinct size limits, and you're allocating a particular amount of storage, and it gets real unwieldy on backup and long-term management. And again, security concerns. Now your data can be breached, something as simple as, Kevin, I'm working with Kevin today on this webinar, but I've got a couple Kevins in my address book. What if I type the wrong one? Even if you're using automatic data leakage prevention and encryption security, there's still ways where the users can use your own automated tools to compromise your data. Removal media, we talked about this a bit before. It's easy, it's fast, but it's portable, and the users consider it disposable, and they probably won't tell you. At least if their laptop's stolen, they're going to own up to it. If their USB stick gets lost, they just grab another one. What do you even occur to them? You can literally get these at the checkout aisle at grocery stores. That's a little bit of a scary thought from a data security perspective. Some steps you can take. Well, flat URL filtering is a good way to start. Then block them, keep them from going there. A lot of different solutions offer the ability to do this type of blocking and let you pick case by case or site by site if you want to allow certain ones. But what's the gotchas? Users want to use what they want to use, the stuff they're used to from home. Users tend to pout when you start taking away tools or blocking websites, and frankly, like the Jurassic Park movie, Nature Finds a Way, if you take away a tool or take away one particular storage site, they'll just start looking for other ones. We've got to look for some ways to say yes. Another way, application control. Instead of blocking the website, block the actual executable. Keep it from running. Very effective tool for blocking. Very effective tool for stopping this type of behavior. Something that's fairly easy to monitor when you have the right tool set up. What's the gotcha? Same thing about user behavior. They suddenly jump back to the old ways of doing it, putting things on USB. If you haven't put USB encryption in place, that's a concern. Start using email. The users will find a way. Well, here's the step Sophos is coming at you from at a high level. Stay in a high-level industry, and I'll switch to some Sophos specifics in a minute. Make it safe. Encrypt it. More importantly, give you a way to say yes. We realize this is a balancing act, balancing user productivity versus security. Well, let's say yes. Let's make sure the data is encrypted before it's copied to a sync folder, before it ever reaches the cloud. That way, if, like the Dropbox example, when they made the password mistake, the data they're accessing, it's already pre-encrypted. If the Patriot Act subpoena shows up, they give access to a file, but it's an encrypted file. Without the right keys and passwords, they're not accessing it. If someone at your cloud vendor goes a little bit rogue, or if the user makes a mistake and shares the data at the wrong email address, the data is encrypted and protected. Now this is going to just layer in some protection so that you're pulling the control of it out of the cloud provider back to you and your network. And that's what Sophos is suggesting, along with their partners at TechXtend at a high level. Shifting a little bit to the product specifics and what we do as a company, we offer Safeguard Cloud Storage. It's part of our Safeguard Enterprise Encryption line. A lot like what we can do for a USB stick. On USB, you can automatically encrypt data that's copied to USB and put a portable utility on the USB stick to make it password protected. We're proposing the same type of solution from a cloud perspective. Now when data is copied instead of USB, but to your sync folder, it's automatically encrypted. The documents are protected internally before they ever get synced up. We put the same type of portable application on there, so now with the data sitting in the cloud provider, it's pre-encrypted with the portable there. So now with the right password, the right access, you can get to it. So if I want to send Kevin a copy of these slides, I could email him a link, tell him on the phone out of band, hey, the password's going to be TechXtend 12 pounds, something like that. And now it's secured. And now if I mistype the email address and it's the wrong Kevin, my other friend Kevin emails you back and says, hey, what's this thing? I don't know the right password. You realize, oh, so it's the wrong guy. Don't worry about it, buddy. But the important part is it's automatic. But when the data is copied to the cloud, it's automatically pre-encrypted. I took the cloud provider security out of the equation. If they layer in some additional security, great. Glad to hear it. But I'm not relying on it. I took two important things into play here. One, I'm able to say yes and let the users use the tool they wanted to, so they're not trying to find a way to get around me. Two, I forgot off the table. Most of the breaches we're seeing in the industry these days, when we look at healthcare and financial services, have been accidental user mistakes. In banking, it tends to be more specific people attacking. But more often than not, it's users breaking the rules, and your breach was simple as I didn't know or I forgot. Well, let's take them out of the equation. Let's pre-encrypt it before it ever leaves your system. That way you're already pre-protected. It looks a little bit like this, just to give you an idea of the workflow. Starting in the top right-hand corner, you've got your Safeguard Enterprise platform setting up to manage encryption. For setting up the policies and keys, we'll use myself as an example. Tom, you're allowed to encrypt data and send it to cloud storage. Okay. So the key rule gets applied to my computer at work in the top right-hand corner. When I say something there, it automatically applies, in this case, the gold-colored key. It also puts that portable right up there in the center of the graphic, your Dropbox, your Ignite, your cloud storage. So it's sitting there at rest, encrypted. When it was on my system, it was encrypted. When it went in motion, it was encrypted. So that whole life cycle, that data, at rest, in motion, is encrypted. So say bottom right-hand corner, I go from work and I go home. I went to update my PowerPoint proposal at home. I go to my Dropbox, pull it down, put in the right passwords, make my change. Then I can save it back up, push it up, encrypt it. Now, I happen to be in Massachusetts. Kevin's in the West Coast. Well, what if I throw him a call or email, today I made the changes, and he's still on his way in or on his way home because he's working different hours than me. Maybe he's on the train. and he's got his mobile device of choice. Maybe he's an iOS guy or a Droid guy. Either way, doesn't matter because we put a reader platform, so now while he's on the train, he can securely pull it down, get a copy of it, leave to their presentation, make sure that both our companies are on the same page. So the bottom line here is I gave it the mobility it needed so the users could access the data where they wanted to, but I automated its protection. So before it ever left my company system in the top right-hand corner, it was already protected. Now that's cloud sort of in the context of a specific user-to-user behavior. Tom, as an individual user, individual consumer, want to be able to share data and use it the way I wanted to. What if I take that a little more macro level? Let's talk file shares. Who's got access to your file shares? Well, frankly, probably a lot of people. That answer's changed a bit over time. So if you think of some workflows, if you're working on something like a payroll plan, and that's stored up on the server, or if you're working on the design of a new product, and you email your teammates and say, hey, I put the data up in the network share, and they go and access it, work on it, and save it someplace else for their own ease, you know, where's that data going in your environment? Is it automatically protected? Does it stay inside your access control lists? Plus, quite frankly, somebody in your business is worried about your IT guys. Your IT guys are usually busy type of people. The better things to do is go poking around the network. But the reality is they could. They have those rights, and that worries the suits. Well, let's give you some protections. Let's make sure the data going in your network shares are automatically encrypted. Let's make sure that before it leaves your endpoint, it gets pre-encrypted before it goes out. We'll use that payroll example. That person in HR works on the file, goes to save it to network share. The safeguard encryption is going to encrypt it, so it's written in a local system encrypted. It goes in motion to the left of your HR network, encrypted. Now, when another authorized user goes to access that file, it comes down to encrypted. The beauty is for Joe and Jane in HR, they just click on it, it just works. It just works like it always did. They got their keys as part of the login process. But when we'll promote Kevin IT. So when Kevin's in IT, he's going to do his normal server maintenance stuff, backing it up, striping it to tape, sending tapes to Iron Mountain, mirroring drives, all the cool IT stuff he's got to do for the care and feeding of his server. We can isolate his server maintenance tasks from access to the data. This helps the business and this helps Kevin. This helps the business isolate access to data, meet the regulations about access control, and make sure Kevin's not messing around. Well, this helps Kevin. Kevin's stuck dealing with auditors all the time. We're checking up on him. I want to see what he's doing, what he's touching. He can make this very clean by isolating the keys from his use behavior. Right about now, there's probably someone on this call going, Tom, bring it back to the web. Bring it back to cloud. Sure thing. Oh, I skipped a slide. My bad. Forgot to include that one. Well, so the next step would be, instead of saving it to that HR drive that's in your network, frankly, that could be in the cloud. This comes back to the Ignite type example where you get that hybrid cloud. If that server's down the hallway or across the web. So that endpoint, that HR web endpoint, it's just a UNC path. Now your W drive could be on your server, or that could be at Amazon Web Services. Because the encryption was applied at the endpoint level before it went in motion through your VPN, through your network, or in this case, through the web to the cloud, and gets written in the cloud, it was already pre-protected. The same things we worried about before. What if my cloud provider goes rogue? What if my cloud provider makes a mistake? What if they are subpoenaed? They only have access to encrypted files, not your data. I took them out of the equation. Use a specific example, Amazon Web Services. Sophos also makes next-generation firewalls and UTMs, which can be set up in a virtual way. We're one of only 3 vendors, Sophos, Cisco, and Juniper, that have been certified by Amazon to install next-generation firewall into their web services. So if you're looking to build redundancy or leverage cloud from a pure file share, from a file sharing perspective, or from a full file redundancy and file infrastructure as a service, we can layer in some encryption protection there. The tools I've talked about are part of a broader tool set for Safeguard Enterprise. On the left-hand side, we talked about file share and cloud share encryption. Going around the wheel from 12 o'clock, we also have full disk encryption for Windows and Macintosh systems. At 2 o'clock, you have removable media encryption, USB and CD, because not everybody's using the cloud. You might have people hacking it. Configuration protection. This is a combination of port history and port auditing, as well as port control. Sort of like, well, who actually used USB, FireWire, Bluetooth, and then control of that. Let's block this. Let's whitelist that. At about 6 o'clock in the wheel, you've got Safeguard Partner Connect. This is the ability to manage Microsoft BitLocker encryption. And we're not the only encryption game in town, and we know it. Our central management platform is built to manage our software-based encryption, but it can also tie in the ability to manage BitLocker or even hardware-based encryption, the Opal drives you can get from your laptop makers these days. This is part of the basic Sophos approach of complete security and protecting the lifecycle of data anywhere it goes. Whoever said nothing's free, here's something free on us for taking the time to listen to us today. Sophos Mobile Security. As bring your own device becomes more popular and there's more ways you can access your data, we want you to help you protect and secure your devices. Mobile Security we've released for Android today. We're coming up with some iOS tools. Right now Android's out, and it's free. It lets you do any malware scanner on the device. It does loss and theft, so you can do remote lock or remote wipe of your device personally, and it'll do a privacy advisor check. It lets you detect apps which access personal data like your address book, your text messages, to look out for apps that you thought were harmless that aren't. Now, I particularly like the fact that you have the option to lock it until you find your phone and then wipe it if you know it's gone. This one's on us. This is free. I realize the URL on the left is kind of a mess. That's part of the fault from the TechXtend team. We're going to include that as part of the follow-up package. But take that one on me. If you yourself use Droid or friends and family, get them some AV and some ability to lock down the device on us. Make your cloud just a little bit safer. Bottom line, a few things here. When you start looking towards the cloud, it's still cool. There are great reasons to use it. I don't want to ignore that and ignore the productivity benefits. But it's the law. It's your responsibility to protect the data. The laws don't say encrypt laptops or encrypt cloud storage. They say protect data, protect privacy, disclose if you failed, and raise your hand for the lawsuits and the fines. But they usually have that out clause, that safe harbor clause. So follow the law and protect the data before it ever leaves your control. Another thing is automate it. I don't want my users to have to remember. Yeah, they want to do the right thing, but don't make them have to. Do it for them. Before I pass it back to Kevin and his team, very briefly, a real quick overview. This is a small subset of the complete security portfolio Sophos brings to the table. We're Gartner Magic Quadrant player for our tools like our endpoint antivirus, our mobile phone MDM platform. Right-hand side is the encryption platform. That's been a Gartner leader, top right-hand corner in the Gartner Quadrant if you look at it, for 8 years in a row. We also offer email security, antivirus, and malware, web security. As I mentioned, we've added UTM Next Generation Firewall. Sophos bought Astaro to add Next Generation Firewall to our tool set about a year ago. So very broad security, and if you have questions on other parts of our portfolio, the TechXtend team would be happy to give you a hand. Kevin, does it go back to you at this point?
Yes, it does. We are going to open up the floor now for questions and answers. And you put them in the chat. You can type them into the chat or the Q&A, and we will read them out. So we have one question coming in right now. Does Sophos act as a cloud storage provider?
Good question. So we're actually acting as a provider itself. We're handling the encryption and the control behavior. So whomever you happen to choose, be it Dropbox, Ignite, SkyDrive, iCloud, there's a whole litany of them both domestically and internationally. We're going to control the executable behavior in local systems and that sync folder behavior. So when the data gets written to the sync folder, we encrypt it. So the actual target, be it an infrastructure as a service in a server level or just a particular personal sync folder, it doesn't matter to us so much. It's just encrypted before it ever leaves your endpoint.
Okay. Second question. Is blocking cloud storage, executables, and sites an option?
Absolutely. Application control and URL control, I think, is an important part of this. even if you choose a tool like Sophos to do some security and encryption control on it, that's the saying yes. Oh, you want to use cloud storage? Here's the one I'm going to allow. You know, pick Dropbox, pick Henault, pick the one you like and you're familiar with using and it lines up with the tools. Then you have the power and sort of you've earned the right, if you will, to block the other ones. So if a user starts saying, hey, I can't access my XYZ cloud storage provider, you say, hey, no, that's no problem. For acceptable use, we'll let you use cloud storage, but this is the one that we've chosen and set up a large corporate account for, or this is the one you can go get, you know, a couple gigs free from this provider. But my point is, if you just block it all blanketly, depending on your vertical, if you're in banking, something like that, they're pretty used to getting locked down. But say you're in healthcare, doctors don't like being told no. You have to be able to say yes. So maybe not the way they want it, but say, oh, we can provide that, but here's a tool, and here's where you set up your password so we can encrypt it and protect it for you.
All right, it looks like there are no more questions today. So we want to thank Tom for hosting this webinar today. We want to thank you all for attending. If you need to contact us, please do by email at info@techextend.com or on the phone at 800-221-7710. So again, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Tom, for doing this for us today, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.